that's good. Can you see it? No, but it's good. It's way up there.
See that point right there? Yeah. There's a spot I want you to hit. You good with that, Don? We can cruise left and look at 288. It's the first time we've ever had this out.
First time.
Well, the flat spot right up here is NC 288. And, can you see what I'm talking about?
I do. I see it like
Yeah.
a roadbed. Yeah.
Right, and it winds around from here all the way around to the Eagle Creek embayment. It's above water, but it goes underwater just right up here, and it stays underwater until up above Cable Branch, crosses underneath the lake now, and then comes up on the other side. And so that ridge line that we're seeing here, which is the end of Welch Ridge, it climbs it and goes around it, and it stays above the water for on up there for, I don't know, maybe a mile or so.
This is how people would have drove to come.
Yeah, and it's just an old dirt road. It was,
or road horses or their wagons or whatever.
well, there
Some
were
cars,
vehicles.
okay.
Yeah, they definitely brought vehicles down here. In fact, they had Gary Reese, the guy that Heath works with, said his father used to bring, is it Knee-High or R.C. Cola, one or the other down here?
It's Knee-High.
Yeah, down to Proctor. And he said if you met a car, one of you had to get off the road.
Oh, wow.
Looped around up above, I don't know, maybe a quarter mile above Cable Branch. It looped around and came down the other side, and then it climbed until we got to where we saw it come out of the water back down there. But there was also a road that went right up alongside Hazel Creek. So you had a intersection up there. Yeah, probably didn't have any stoplights. Well, this is just the other side of where it came out. So if you look over here, this next cove over here is Cable Branch. I don't know if you can tell where we're pointing to it.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just across this ridge line here is Cable Branch. There were about, if I remember right, 13 or 14 permanent homes up in there. Now, when Fontana was being built, there was a mess of shacks and trailers and stuff along the creek down here, just temporary housing, but permanent dwellings up there. And there was a school and a church on Cable Branch, and there's a cemetery that Susan remembers going to.
Did something bad happen, Susan, at that cemetery?
No,
I don't remember anything. Oh, you don't remember, huh?
Do you remember the corn gritter that I found up in there?
Is that the one that you only stepped on? It's flat with the...
No, that's on Pilkey Creek. You know what I'm talking about. It's a
Right,
tin with holes punched all in it.
Yeah, gritter, yeah.
Yeah. Was up in there, and there's a cemetery up on the Cable Branch. And there was a mill at the mouth of the branch, which is now underwater. There's no, you can't see any evidence of it at all. And it was sited below a falls, which, a logical site, not a place to site a mill.
So this, Don, explain again, this is again part of the road that this is on the other side.
This is basically where NC 288 is going underwater, just beyond Heath there.
And he took a photo for us, is what he was doing, so we'll show that.
cables did not live on Hazel Creek proper. They lived around the bend up here. We get time sensitive.
Is that an eagle?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
I've had a lot and I've had little.
Yeah. If he can be content there, then surely
That's it.
I can keep from
Respect it.
complaining and be content with what I got. Sometimes that's easier said than done, but I try to remind myself.
Yeah, that's all gravel right there. You're good.
We just got off the boat. What a beautiful ride across the lake. It's so pretty. And look at these beautiful ivies. They're blooming here just like they are back in Wilson Holler at my house. So we seen these beautiful flowers blooming down here by the water off the trail, and we had to come investigate. They look like a type of iris.
Beautiful, ain't they, Mama?
Yeah. So where do you think they come from, Don?
That's a great question. I do not know.
Don's never seen them blooming before here.
I mean, I've been in here at the times of year when they would have been blooming, but I just never noticed.
They're different, though. A different kind of, I mean,
They're really tall.
yeah.
There were something like between 25 and 30 homes up that branch.
And what'd you say the name of the branch was?
Sheehan, and I have no idea where the Sheehan name came from because I don't know of any Sheehans, S-H-E-H-A-N, but it's called Possum Hollow as well. Yeah. That's, when we get up here, there's a Cherokee camp. There was never Cherokees, they never had a town here that I know of or that anybody's been able to tell me of. But there is a camp basically where the mill was, and it was called Econeatley Camp according to Lamar Marshall. And there's also an Econeatley Path, and that Econeatley Path apparently came up Calhoun Branch, which is above the mouth of Hazel Creek, across and went up Sheehan Branch, and I think it probably went through a gap up here called Soapstone Gap, down to Eagle Creek, and then up Eagle Creek, up Econeatley Creek, across Econeatley Gap, down Econeatley Branch into Cades Cove.
Oh, wow.
And that was a
That's the
long
connection.
used Cherokee trail, and that is, so the Proctors who first purportedly first settled here, presumably came from Cades Cove across that Econeatley trail and down. And they made their home site just right over here.
We were talking about Mildred Johnson earlier, who lived in this general area when she was a girl. She told me one time about walking. They had family in Cades Cove, and they would go over there, walk, and stay a while, and then they'd come. Was that probably how they went?
Well, either Mildred or Helen, and I don't remember which, it may have been Helen Sisson, they would go over through Spence Fields.
Okay.
So that's an alternative way.
Okay.
Now this, if you go over through that way, you sort of come out at the head of Cades Cove, up the east end of Cades Cove. If you go this way, that Econically branch I mentioned runs into Forge Creek, which runs down the west side, the lower side of Kate's Cove. So maybe it depends on
Yeah, on
your
how,
folks are on the,
where you were starting from too, I guess. But
No.
these are not native plants, are they? Or are
I
they? We don't know. We don't know. We'll have to
I
investigate.
don't recognize them.
Here's a holly tree beside where we were at, looking at the flowers, and look at the blooms on it. Aren't they beautiful? So Dawn pointed out this is definitely a she holly because it's going to have the berries. The hollies that don't have them, we call he hollies.
You see that elevated berm right through there?
I do, yeah.
That's the railroad. That's where the railroad goes. And Heath and I went down there to it when we were in here a few weeks ago. Walked by that dozens of times and never noticed it until they came out with LiDAR, light imaging, detecting and ranging. And you can see this, that just clears the bell with LiDAR. And you know, no telling how many other people like us just never even noticed it was there. Yeah.
So that would have been the train that for lumber and people would have rode it too, or just the lumber mostly?
Well, I mean, it was put in for the lumber, but people did ride the train as well. But we were just told that was the rail grade coming up Hazel Creek was an engineered grade. Well, all of them would have been engineered, but Orson Burlingame was the engineer for Ritter Lumber. And he ended up building it in a house in town. His way in Bryson City is still there.
This is a beautiful spot right here. You can see that big pool of water. Several years ago, we had the wonderful privilege of coming here and watching a baptizing. It was very, very meaningful, special day.
We're getting ready to go up to where the old school was. It was the high school, and on the side I have pictures. There was the high school, which was the main building, and then the two smaller ones were the elementary school. And also we're going to be able to see where the basketball court was in front, and then the road leading up to the school. And then we'll also go around and find the old water fountain. And that was the only thing that had running water, was the water fountain.
Wow.
Yeah.
And this was the Proctor, was that the name of it? Proctor School?
Proctor School, yes.
Proctor School.
Yep. And Susan's got the slides.
Okay.
Wow. So if y'all would, if you'll come right down here around these smaller hemlocks, this gives you the best perspective because this is where this shot was from. Well, we started up top. We come up, there's a water fountain up here. We come up the bank off of the road and then came down. There's a road that comes and circles around here. We'll have to find the easy way to get up to it. But when we got down here, we got out the picture of the school, and that right there is one of the posts that held up the basketball goal. So if y'all come right here, I don't know if y'all have the handouts, but you can see kindly the layout. Right here is that.
That's supposed to.
That's it right there. Now it took us a few minutes because I was like, this is a tree. This has got to be a tree. And then, you know, you can tell when you go up and you shake it that it was tamped in. And it's an old locust post, which those will last forever. Yep. And if you kind of look, I know everything's grown up, but you can kind of see how everything laid. You can see this big flat down here.
And that was in the 40s, maybe? When was that?
This-
It was after it was timbered, though, right?
Yes, and during they had it.
During it.
Yep.
Yeah, Ritter Lumber Company built a lot of these facilities. There was a sizable town here.
What is it?
Yeah.
Just right up here on the hill.
line? You see that, Jim?
It's right there where that fella right there is walking through, 3-pointer. It was the same as a half court. But I just thought that was the neatest thing, you know, because we have been up here so many times.
Were there 2 goals?
Yes, yep, there's another one over there. I couldn't find it. Is that not cool?
That's awesome. So cool. It's so cool. And it's because it's locust that it's still
Yep.
here. Yeah, so cool.
How many times I've been beside that or up in there? Then we got here with that picture. I was like, oh my gosh. To me, like they were 10 foot high. I don't know. You know, they look a little shorter.
Yeah, they do look a little shorter.
So this one here in the middle was the high school, and the 2 on the sides were the elementary schools.
Okay.
Now, I don't know if Dawn had mentioned it, but down there below where we took the cart, that was where the baseball fields were. Right there next to the baptizing hall. But what we can do is we'll walk over through here and you can see big piles of the brick. And then on the other side is the water fountain. And it's still got a 1/2-inch pipe coming up out of it.
Is the actual building on this level?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Where on this level was it?
Right in here, roundabout, this is where this building starts because we can see it coming around. That road coming up.
That bigger building, I bet it was 75 to 100 feet long. Really? Yeah.
It's a pretty good
It
shot.
went all the way over here.
And I think these other 2 buildings, these elementary school, I mean, you can see on the foundation how that's the brick. You know, that was the main one, but I think these were just underpinning. They just had slats or something underneath it.
And I don't think there were chimneys in any of those. You notice?
You know what? You're right.
And that's because of when they were built, they would have wood stoves. So those were built in probably the 1910s
You know, something that's...
by Ritter.
Oh, really? That's interesting. You know, and I wonder about this building right here, too. What that dugout is. Like this little, is it part of it or something set back off of it? So this is where the main building sat right in here. It's all this, because it was the one that had the brick foundation. So this is where our main building sat. Now we'll cut off down through here. This will be an easier way down instead of what we came back up. But if y'all want to come through here, you're walking right through where that main building, the school was.
Watch out for ghosts.
What's cool is like these little trails and stuff off of here.
Oh yeah, the kids would have.
That's what a bunch of youngins just running down and coming off the bank.
So this was a water fountain.
That's pretty cool that y'all found that. That's
And that-
amazing.
What was he saying about that was the only running water?
That was the water for the school. And you want to guess, I mean, have you noticed any water up above us up here?
No.
There's not any.
Uh-uh.
It came from across the creek about a 1/2 mile away.
Wow.
In fact, it was came from property that was owned by Bland Coburn. They got a right-of-way and an agreement with her. It's actually recorded deed to run water from a branch over there. Of course, this is a higher elevation than this is.
So it ran across the creek,
Ran across or through the creek.
under the creek, or
And you know, that sounds crazy, but this was not the only place that did that.
really?
On,
Because it just seems like that was, so long ago that would they have had that technology?
Yeah, I mean, it's just basically gravity.
Yeah.
They on Nolan Creek, which is about 18 miles east of here. Same arrangement. There was a water collection tank in a branch that funneled water across the creek, and they ran it through hollowed out logs filled with manure for installation.
Okay, wonder how that came.
And I don't know about this. But now this is possible. So after the town of Proctor was built up, they had their own water system, and so it's possible they switched over to this. Mm-hmm. But for sure, originally it came from over across the creek.
That's pretty cool. How old is that?
It may have the date on it. 1928.
Wow.
L. L1.
So what exactly is that?
It's a USGS geodetic marker. So it's a reference point.
It's a survey reference.
So they place these, and on there somewhere it says it's against the law to take it. Federal crime.
It'd be kind of hard to
Who'd
tell.
want to take it anyway?
But people do take some of them.
That's a shame.
Yeah, some of them have gone missing. And I had a little bit of a hobby just to try to find some of them, and this is one I happened to trip across, just like I tripped across the water fountain back there. I didn't know it was there.
That's amazing that you found that.
So Dawn, did they do that when they were marking it? Was that in relation to when they wanted to start the park, or that was something else?
I
or
think
before that,
it could have been related. I'm not positive, but the timing was right. They did a whole bunch of these, from Eagle Creek to Lufty. So, and it was in the 1920s. I mean, there are, I found records online, and they describe where they are. And in fact, if you look on old maps, maybe even the new maps, you'll sometimes see little triangles that mark where those things are and have the elevation associated with it.
Well, they were outside the park as well, correct?
Yes.
Because I
There-
stumbled across one in Hazel Gorge,
Yeah.
getting out of the creek fishing.
Yeah. There's, I found them on Kephart Prong, up on top of, there's one on top of Thunderhead, which is, Thunderhead's pretty much right at the divide. Look right behind you there, Jim.
I've been walking through deer poop.
But there's one on,
I saw it.
and there's one on Siler's Ball, so and always they pick a good sized rock, for obvious reasons. So the church steeple was like this direction here, and had a door in the second floor that went out to the 10 feet above the ground.
Not
I
a
have
balcony or anything. It's just
Just the door.
don't wake up.
I guess that's for those that they excluded from the church.
They pushed all the sinners out.
So is the church right here? Is that what
Church,
you were
yeah.
saying?
So and here's foundation stone. You can see foundation stones on both sides of the road. And that church was built by Ritter for the community, but it remained here after Ritter left. In fact, it was still standing when TVA took over. So this road is a latter-day thing. This was put in after the park. This was acquired for the park. Because the old road, if y'all didn't hear me, came up the other side and crossed the creek, across this island right here. There's a bridge.
What was the name of this church?
Proctor Baptist.
Have we passed the baptism hole?
That baptism hole is where we left our lunches and stuff.
Okay.
So, and we should stop by there on the way back just to have, because it's really right now it's really pretty with the laurel blooming or ivy.
So these are the other foundation rocks that Dawn was talking about, the foundation of the church. So where me and Corey are standing with the camera, we'd be in the church house right here. The church is long gone, of course, but you can just see the foundation that's left.
Some people have labeled this as a valve house. I think it's a pump house. And I say that because that's what I did for a living, was work on pumping systems. And there's a foundation in there. It's just right for a pump. And so this is I pointed out the lower mill pond. This is the upper mill pond. You might have seen a berm right in the middle of the two of them. And some of the water.
Is that a building over there, sir?
If you look across the creek over here, there's a branch coming down on the other side. I don't know if you can see it or not, but way up the hill above that, there's a water collection tank. And as for potable water. So I think that was probably the potable water source for the mill and for the town. And just like the school got its water from the other side of the creek, same here. Can't really see it this time of year, but there are a number of other larger buildings over in here, which I would not want to be around this time of year, because they definitely look snaky. But the drying kiln building is still pretty much intact.
So this is up close of the pump house that Dawn was talking about. Of course, some people wrote their graffiti in there. Wish they wouldn't do that. But it's amazing. It's still, this part's still standing, of course, in bad shape. I don't know, Corey, if you can see all the way over there. It's hard to see on camera because it's even hard for us to see here. But there are some, you can see the outline of the brick building there. That's part of the whole Ritter lumber company. And Dawn said we wasn't going to go over there this time of the year. You've got to worry about snakes crawling. And then if it's, I don't know, again, it's hard to show up, but where we're standing in between us and that building over there, there's like a big dip. And that was one of the upper mill ponds. There's two, but this, I think, you call it upper or larger, Corey? I think upper mill pond. Of course, today, got all these trees growing right in the middle of it. And even the pump house, this tree that's grew up in front of it, I'm sure that wasn't there then, or they would have cut it down and it would have been gone. So here's another little building that was behind the pump house. Kind of looks like it was closer down to that pond, so I'm not sure what it is. Don's went on, or he could tell us for sure. And then you can get a better view of that big giant brick building over there. Maybe you can see the red brick through the green. Massive trees around here though, goodness.
So now we are approaching the Calhoun house.
We've seen a lot of wildflowers today. Look at this one, how pretty it is. Beautiful. It's kind of started to rain on us again, but it's been doing that on and off all day, so hopefully it won't be no worse than this. But this, I don't know what it is right through here, but I wish you could smell. It's the wonderful scent of fresh rain, being in the woods, but then there's like a floral undertone to it. It just smells amazing. I wish you could be here to smell it. And then also over top of that, you've got just this thinking about all the people that used to call this place home, that maybe were walking in this area. This big flat place, I'm positive, had to be used for growing corn or something. Just wonderful to think about all that history.
So that belonged to W.A. Franklin. They moved over to Andrews.
Franklin or Franklin?
Franklin. Franklin like the town.
Okay, Franklin.
W.A. Franklin. And they had a store around Bend down here at Sheehan Branch. He also had a store at Fontana. So he was quite the commercial enterpriser. But I think they're buried over in what's the name of that big cemetery in Andrews, Valley Town?
Found a tulip poplar. It's fell off the trees. It's got a little, it's got a bug and a worm. Ooh, the worm, did it eat it? Or did I drop it? No, there's the worm, see? There went the worm. Pretty. There's lots of these little cemeteries scattered out through the Hazel Creek area. And each one of them are beautiful, just kind of in their own different way. I do think this is one of the largest ones. I'd have to ask Dawn if it is the largest or not. Some of them don't have but just a very few graves, but they're all just hauntingly beautiful. So many of these beautiful old gravestones. Look at this one. Look at the hands and the bow. So it says farewell, S.B. Lynn, April 15th, 1892, November 5th, 1919. His tools are past, his work is done. He fought the fight, the victory won. Ooh, I can't even hardly say that without crying. And he wasn't you could see he wasn't all that old.
So, of course, that's Moses and Patience Proctor right up there with the Latter-day Stone. Of course, this is Latter-day as well. So Joseph Washington Welch married Catherine Proctor. Okay, so this is Catherine. They're the first daughter born on Hazel Creek. And now Joseph Washington Welch came from a family that lived further up the river. And I think, and I don't have hard evidence of this, I think the two of them actually moved off of Hazel Creek and up the river toward Kirkland Creek, which is just this side of Chambers Creek for a while. And then, but at any rate, when the Civil War came, Joseph Washington Welch, I believe he was like two of the older Proctor boys. So two youngest sons of the Proctors, Moses Jr. and Mansfield, and I believe Mansfield was the last of the children. As soon as the war broke out, they enlisted. So this is like April or May of 1861, and they were gone. I believe both of them were in the cavalry, which kind of suggests that they were doing well enough that they could bring their own horses, because that's what would have been required. Both of them died in service, and I don't remember which one's which. One was killed in action. The other died of typhoid. The older two brothers, there were actually three older brothers, only two of them enlisted, came after the Forced Conscription Act, which was in 1862. So they only went when they pretty much had to. And the oldest one was William Proctor, so he was the firstborn. And then there was another son in between him and James, and I can't remember what that other son's name is off the top of my head, but James Proctor also enlisted. William was injured during the war, but made his way home. James was taken prisoner of war and sent to Fort Douglas, which is in Chicago area. And it was reportedly it and Fort Delaware were the worst, among the worst of the Yankee prisons. He, I think it was about 2 months. It was close to the end to armistice, and he enlisted in the federal and the Union troop that went out west to Nebraska and Wyoming. And so he was out there for, I think it's the 6th Infantry. He was out there for a while and came back, and whether it was because he had enlisted in the Union outfit or maybe just what he wanted to do, instead of coming back here originally, he came back to Cades Cove. So in 1870, he and his wife, who was a member of the Welch family, were over in Cades Cove. But then they came back over here, and he apparently didn't like being around a lot of people. So they moved to 20 Mile Creek, and they're the only people I have records of being there. And 20 miles, well, it's probably another 10 miles. You've been near 20 Mile Creek. But then they ended up moving back over to Cades Cove, and that's where he's buried. But Moses and Patience, according to the family lore, they had been in Cades Cove before coming over here, and I guess, there's nothing to hard evidence to support that, but the fact that like James went back over to Cades Cove, and there was so much communication between here and Cades Cove, I think it does make sense. But they were here by 1830. And like I was saying earlier, the family story is that Moses wanted to be buried next to where his home stood. And I don't believe for a minute that their home was right here. It's just, if you look how far it is down to the water down there. So after they passed, so what, he died in 1866, 64. That's earlier, not so he did not survive the war. I thought he had, or maybe, but anyway. And so she died shortly thereafter. And Joseph Washington Welch and Catherine then lived in this area. Exactly where their home was, same deal, I don't know.
But those Moses and Patience were supposed
first white settlers. Yeah, and
the community of Proctor was then named after them.
yeah. And next after them, sometime in the 1830s, came another family from Cades Cove, definitely from Cades Cove, and that was the Cables. Again, the family story is that they settled on Cable Branch that we go by on the lake, but there's also some pretty good evidence suggests that they settled where Mildred and Helen and them grew up, and that's just around from the mouth of Hazel Creek. Because there's a land grant to his son that was there. But regardless, the Cables spread out, so they spread out more than the Proctors did. William Proctor ended up living in Graham County, but the Cables, they covered the territory. One of the interesting things is that in those early years, so you had the Proctors and the Cables, and there were some Joneses down here. So they were here from the 1830 up to Civil War time. And I'm not saying that there wasn't anybody in the upper part of Hazel Creek, like the Bone Valley area, but there's no record. I mean, there are land grants given in the 1850s, but it's the people who were basically investors, you know. But after the war, in the 1870s, sort of a group moved up there in ensembles. So there were Calhouns and Brooks, Cooks, and Halls, and there was a bunch of intermarriage amongst those families up there, and there were marriages of folks down here, but in those days, not between the two communities, because they were like 5 or 6 miles apart from each other. But once Ritter came in and the railroad was in, and people could motor back and forth, you started to see marriages between that community and this community. So it's just interesting to see how all that played out.
I wanted Don to talk a little bit about these trees. He taught me about these years ago, pointed them out and told me about them, and because I knew I'd seen them before at even some old cemeteries in Cherokee County. But it's interesting that you see them at cemeteries and at old home places.
When that Loomis and Wheeler came in and bought the trees, the first contract they had was with a family that lived right at the mouth of Bone Valley. They owned that tract there. Had a 100-acre land grant tract, and they purchased, as Wheeler and Loomis purchased, 650 trees, all 2 feet or greater in diameter at the base in that 100-acre tract. That's 6, and this was just poplars and ash. So just those 2 species were 6.5 of them per acre. And those were not, you know, poplar was a fairly significant species, but ash wasn't. And just think about what there was in terms of the oaks and stuff. At any rate, back to Arborvitaes. There are some at the Bryson City Cemetery, for example. And if there's a significance to them in terms of connection to graveyards, I'm not sure what it is. It's just that they're an evergreen tree. And they last a long time, and they end up mostly with a nice shape. You can see they kind of fork out. But at home places, the primary reason for them was there's a place for the chickens to roost, to be protected. And you do see, you're kind of losing them at the home sites because the surrounding forest, kind of envelops them. Here, these are doing well because they keep the cemetery cut, so they at least have that amount of light.
Makes you wonder, people back then, where they got them. Like, could you start one from a cone or a seed or something, or did they order them? Or
I'm sure they must have been able to propagate them somehow, but I have no idea. Maybe like you do with yellow bells, you cut a branch and stick it in the ground. I don't know.
But these were planted here. These didn't come up naturally.
Right. These are non-native.
And the name of them again?
It's Arborvitae, A-R-B-O-R. I think it's 2 words, A-R-B-O-R, like tree, and Vitae, V-I-T-A-E. And I'm probably, like I said, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong.
Wonder where they're native to. We'll have to look that up.
I think there are different varieties of arborvitaes as well, and there's some that grow tall and skinny instead of branching out like these.
How about that old
This is another really touching stone. Look at that beautiful, almost like a lily down through there, but it's Mrs. N.E. Jones, mother of Tenny Hayes, March 16th, 1848, February 10th, 1939. And then on the other side is the daughter, Tenny, wife of T.M. Hayes, April 1st, 1867, and she died July 15th, 1939. Both died in the same year, of course, several months apart. Makes you wonder what happened to them and then how they ended up being buried together. And then in the bottom it says, "My trust is in God, forever with the Lord."
How many, Doc?
About 25. I mean, it's not a terribly wide hollow up through there, you know. But
So you say that mill
What's left?
was somewhere?
there was a mill somewhere, and it's probably right below where that little fall is. And
Yeah.
How much is left of the houses? Are there foundations
There-
left? Or
there are some foundations,
was it
and
stacked rock foundations? Like,
and there are some chimneys.
Have you ever been up to the old Ela Hotel? The foundation?
The Ely Hotel.
Ela? Yeah.
So this is our friend Heath Hyatt that we have met today. He has been a guide for us, and he's been awesome today. We've so enjoyed this trip, but he does this guide as a business. So for anyone who's local, we wanted to give him a shout out here, and we'll have all those details in the description below. So we'll let you kind of describe what you do and what you got going on.
Okay. Basically, we have a guide service in the Smokies in my hometown area, and what we want to do is we want to bring people back and show them our way of living and what I've grown up with and all the things that I love about the Smoky Mountains. With backcountry trips and history hikes and seeing all of the old home sites and just getting back and, the more adventurous side of things. Seeing old home, like I said, old home sites, and just sharing what I love about this place. It's a wonderful place to be, and
Special place.
Yeah, yep.
When you talk about those trips, you could do, like, it could be somebody that's really adventurous and fit and take them way back in the backcountry, but also if you're not that, if you just want to stay on the main trails,
Yes.
there's lots of history there too.
There is a lot of history right off the trail, and it's a lot of places where you would never even know that a home site has been, or that an old dam has been, or that a community had been. And so many times people walk through and then they don't see it. And I want to bring that to people. I want them to be able to see it all.
And as far as the time length, probably you're open, you could do a really long day or just a couple of hours.
Yeah, you can do a couple of hours, a half day, or a full day. The full day is usually entails, you would be more than likely going more backcountry. It's going to be about a 4-mile trip in, considering what we're doing. If you're wanting to go fishing, there's a lot of history with the fishing as well. There's a lot to see and a lot to talk about too. So that could be a half-day trip, and you wouldn't have to go too far back.
But if folks are interested, it's really just customizable. They could get in touch with you and work something out.
That's our goal, is to have it customized for whatever people want to do, what they want to see. Do they want to go see old home sites? Do they want to just go see views or waterfall hikes, or just go fishing for the day, or have that history fishing trip and, come to places like Hazel Creek, Eagle Creek, Deep Creek, anywhere in the Smokies, and we'll take care of them.
Fantastic.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank y'all.
What a wonderful day. We had such a good time. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll leave a lot of links in the description below. Of course, I'm going to leave them for Heath, but also just if you would like more information about Hazel Creek and the history of the area, I'll leave those too. I'm always glad when you stop by to help me celebrate Appalachia.